Hi everybody, my name is Paul. I'm a student guide at the Harvad Art Museums, and today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. So today we'll be taking a look at a painting by the French artist Plerre-Auguste Renoir called Spring Bouquet, painted in 1866. And I really love this painting because it reminds me of my grandma's garden. So I've used this piece on my tour for quite some time now, but whenever I come to this painting, I always tell the story of how when I was growing up, my grandma owned a flower shop next door with this beautiful garden full of vegetables and amazing flowers. And I have many fond memories of playing there as a little kid. And actually today, my grandma now lives in the building that used to be her flower shop, so it's still a place of a lot of sentimental meaning for me, still right next door to my house. And so that's just one of the reasons why I really love Renoir's painting personally. But actually, a lot of the time when I use it on my tour, I get asked, well, what kind of flowers are pictured here? Do you know? And I'm really no expert on that. And I also realized that I don't really know much about what it would take to put together something like this beautiful arrangement. So today we're going to do something a little bit different and see if we can actually recreate that. And I will be drawing upon the expertise of my grandma, who will be helping us take a closer look. And we're going to try to recreate what that painting would have looked like, imitate the flowers the best way that we can, and learn a little bit about how something like that would be put together.
I'm Julia Haverl, proud to be Paul's grandmother, and I'm standing here today in my garden, which originally in the 1970s was a huge organic vegetable garden. In the early 90s, I converted it over to perennials, shrubs, and trees. I created the entire landscape here, including the trees that are in the garden, selected them for their mature height, and selected the perennials a lot for resistance to deer damage because we have a lot of deer grazing in here. I'm going to use the majority of the flowers in the arrangement from the garden, and since it hasn't been solstice yet, technically it's still a spring garden. I've only taken this small bunch of flowers and these few. This is all I got at a florist to add a little more in the way of filler. And we're going to use this vase today, which is very close to the shape of the one in the Renoir painting.
The actual vase in Renoir's painting is probably Japanese porcelain, and this is connected to a movement in 19th century France called Japanism, in which there was a fascination, often problematically so, with Japanese culture, and many impressionist artists like Renoir were very tapped into this. We don't have a porcelain vase today, but we're going to try to imitate it with this blue and white vase that my grandma found in her collection.
If you take a look at the painting, you'll see that the height of the vase is only a third of the height of the arrangement. So in order to get the height, finished height, I would plan to be up around this high. I'm going to use a small bucket inside this container, and in it I have a floral foam block.
Yeah, so when we look at the painting in the gallery, we don't really get an idea of how difficult it would be for something like that to be put together.
In his day, there was no floral foam. So I don't know whether they used chicken wire. I think that was often used. I'm going to take my garden hose and add water to the bucket. I need to start adding around the base greenery and filler to hide all of this support network here. I'm going to start with some of these lovely glossy peony leaves to fill in the bottom and the back and to hide the base of the vase. And I'm going to use some of these huge, vigorous peony leaves. Been very interested in art in the period of the time of Renoir up through the Impressionists and the Connecticut Impressionists that studied at the Florence Griswold Museum right here in Connecticut. And I'm so pleased that Paul also has an interest in art, and floral arrangements have always been favorites with lots of artists.
Well, a lot of my interest in art stems from visiting the Florence Griswold Museum with you guys when I was little.
That's right. It's a lovely, lovely place.
Yeah. The movement we now call Impressionism began in the 1870s when a group of artists, including Renoir, Claude Monet, Paul Cézanne, and others, broke away from the Paris Salon, which had traditionally governed what art looked like at that time, and staged their own exhibition in 1874. The Impressionists were known for exploring the play of light and color, depicting everyday scenes in the life of the contemporary upper class, and they sort of developed this style that might be described as blurry, but it looks very different from the sort of hyper-realistic paintings that had come beforehand. And they were called Impressionists by critics, actually, who criticized their pieces for looking more like sketches than finished paintings. It wasn't really a super unified movement, and eventually many of the artists sort of went in different directions, but it was nevertheless extremely influential and forever changed the trajectory of modern art.
I'm going to start by putting in a bunch of the blue Nepeta stems instead of where he used lilacs. They approximate the color and they have a nice soft fluffy texture. The ones I'm using from these vases on the table were picked 24 hours ago so they could draw up water and be, the word is conditioned. This filler in white from the florist, which is a type of status. It dries but holds up well in water for a long time. Usually you see it in blue in arrangements. Always re-clip stems. You have to do it kind of in stages to get the background filled in.
So how long would you say you've been arranging flowers, Grandma?
Oh, I think about 40 years.
Only 40 years?
Yeah. Well, before that, I learned to grow them, and I always loved them, but I didn't know any of the techniques like I'm talking about today. I didn't study it formally, but when I had my shop, I had the opportunity to go to design seminars that were put on by the wholesaler, and they had very talented people come and show us how to put a arrangement together. And so I learned a lot just by attending those seminars. I really studied taxonomic botany and have a master's degree in that. Putting the peonies in now that I believe are the major flower in this. This is an old variety that was around in Renoir's time called Festiva Maxima. This is Sarah Bernhardt, but I think she dates from the early 1900s. But he had some pale pink ones in there, so I'm going to add a few of those too. Gardening's a wonderful hobby, and you can strike up conversations with people all over the world. Whenever I traveled, I appreciated gardens that I saw, and I enjoyed talking with people in different countries about gardening. Even the weeds become interesting when you're a gardener and you're traveling. You see what's growing in other countries. I've tried to imitate this very low left side, and then he had kind of a curving line back up to the top. And this is a lovely shrub that people are familiar with in their yards. Hey, kitty. Yeah, you'll never be able to duplicate it exactly because the flowers have their own personality, so to speak. They bend in different directions sometimes than his, you know.
Yeah, but I think in a way, I mean, it's nice that we're not completely recreating it. I mean, there's something so organic about the painting.
Yes, that's true.
So
it's very free and organic. That's the right word. It's very natural and it's very, very good form. Always when working with flowers like this, to have some that go in very low and hang down in the front of the vase. It just draws the eye down and it looks so pretty. And it's interesting that he has all the design tactics in that arrangement, whoever did it. I'm not saying he did it. That the thing you have to be careful of is not overdoing it. I'm pleased.
I think that's in a good spot.
Yeah, I think if I go any more, I could overdo it.
Right, you gotta find a balance.
Yeah. Sometimes a little less is more. But I've achieved the height that I hope to achieve. And I've used flowers of the season like he did. And many of the flowers are the same, the peonies especially. So that was fun, Paul.
Thank you so much for joining us today, everybody. We hope you learned something. We certainly did, and we're very happy with our finished result here. This has really forced me to take a look at this painting in a way that I've never seen it before and break it down to its constituent parts and see how something like this would be built up. And I think I'll never look at it the same way again. So thank you again, and feel free to try something like this on your own. We'd love to see if this can be done with other arrangements. And you can tag us on Instagram or Facebook with your creation.